How do you play the chiru pattern on the shakuhachi? Hi, I'm Marcus and I play the shakuhachi, and I'm also a licensed shakuhachi teacher. Let's continue in our exploration of special shakuhachi techniques by looking at the chiru pattern. This pattern occurs in many honkyoku pieces, and maybe it's not a special technique in the strictest sense, but it's good to know quite a bit about how to play and practice it. A very simple version of this pattern occurs, for example, in honshirabe. But there are also longer and more complex patterns, for example, something like this. The first thing to know about this pattern is that there actually is no chi in the chiru pattern. What? Drama! Sorry, being silly again. Chi here is just short for chi meri. When talking about shakuhachi notes, it is not uncommon to drop the meri because it's just easier to talk like that or to sing a particular melody. So we had here chiru tsuru chi chiru tsuru, and so on. If I include the meri, chimeriru, tsumeriru, chimeriru, and so on, okay? By the way, I'm recovering from a cold, so you probably can hear it in my voice. But if you want to hear me sing more in my videos, please leave a comment down below. So, that's the chimeri, or the chi. Okay, the other main note in this pattern is the ru. Ru is a special fingering for re. We have re here, and ru is this. For ru, you close 2, 4, and 5, and then you can shade the third hole or the first hole. But the pitch is the same as re. Okay? You probably can hear that the sound is quite different from the standard re. Taking a slightly more general view, you can play many notes on the shakuhachi with different fingerings that create the same pitch. For this pattern, it is important to understand that you can play the re pitch with 3 different fingerings: re, chi dai meri, and ru. And each one creates a different timbre. So you have re, chi dai meri, or ru. For Western instruments, the ideal usually is that it should not matter which fingering you use to play a note. It should sound the same. But for shakuhachi, this is different. Meri notes are always quiet notes, and the main factor in choosing a fingering is not convenience, but rather the sound color that you want to produce. In honkyoku, you sometimes even continue playing the same pitch, but change the fingering. So, D meri, D meri to re dai meri, same as chi pitch, and then you change to chi. So, now same for u, and so on. This is done because of the different sound colors that these fingerings produce. There are 2 ways to play ru, as I already indicated. You can shade the third hole, or you can shade the first hole, or don't shade any hole if you go in a bit of a lower meri position. Which one of these 2 options, so shading 3 or 1, you choose depends on the context. I'm going to call these 2 options the short pattern and the long pattern. In the short pattern, at its core, this is just re, chi meri, ru, and here you shade 3. So, there are 2 important things to get right here. It's crucial that re and ru have the same pitch. And the second thing is that you should not change the meri position between playing chi meri and ru. This means when you play chi meri, you must go to a low meri position and open the third hole a lot. If you play chi with only a little head tilt and a small opening on 3, the pitch for ru will be too low. So the first option, you can play chi meri like this. But then the ru is too low. Okay, alternatively, more head tilt, less covering of the third hole. And then you're back at re pitch. If you get these things into your system, the rest is not difficult. So you should practice them until they are automatic and you don't have to think about what you're doing anymore. This short pattern also often contains a chi daimeri. So for example, the full pattern in Honshirabe that I played earlier is this here. For chi daimeri, you can shade two to make it easier. So you have two half holes. But if you close the second hole completely, then you play ru. Okay, so this basically defines ru, that you close the second hole completely. So in this pattern, in Honshirabe, you have 3 notes with the same pitch, but different fingerings. Re, chi daimeri, and ru. So in the short pattern, you shade 3. By the way, if this is getting a bit confusing, I made an overview sheet available for free on Patreon that will help you understand and practice all of this. If you subscribe to my Patreon for free, so you don't need to be a paid member to get that, you get access to this sheet and to some other free materials, linked down in the description, of course. Now for the long pattern. If there is a tsumeri following the ru, then it's usually not so good to shade the third hole because the transition from ru to tsumeri is difficult if you do this, okay? To get to tsumeri, you have to shade hole 1, of course, but you also have to fully close hole 3. And this is not easy because it's already shaded. So you'd have to shift the finger down, and this does not make a clean transition, okay? So if you do, or with this finger as well. Okay, so here it is usually better to shade the first hole because this makes the transition from ru to tsumeri much easier. You only have to close the third hole. It may be necessary to adjust how much of the first hole is covered, depending on the flute and on your playing style. It has to be more open for ru than for tsumeri. Because one tricky aspect about playing ru in this way is that the first hole opening must be quite big. If the first hole is closed too much, this will happen. For the experts among you, yes, this is circle sannu, yeah, or maru sannu, but that's the topic for another video. So this is a bit of an anomaly, okay? So take a moment and let this sink in, because usually when we close a hole or we half hole something, the pitch goes down. But here, if we close the first hole more, the pitch jumps up. Secret Shakuhachi knowledge! So again, to get to the point where you can play ru, it is important to go to a low meri position to get the right pitch. So again, yeah, I said for the short pattern already, to play the ru, go into a low meri position. It's the same position here, okay, the same low meri position. Then, if you already have this fingering here for ru, shading the first hole, it's also often easier to shade 1 for chi meri. Chi meri fingering usually is this, yeah, shading 3. But you also can do this. Then when you change from ru to chi meri to ru, or the other way around, you just have to open and close 2. Of course, it's possible to open these two holes completely, shade this. But this is quite awkward, and it makes a clean transition between ru and chi meri much more difficult. The chiru pattern is often elaborated to include more notes. Hi, chi meri, then the 3 notes with the same pitch, chi daimeri, ru re, tsumeri, as we already talked about in the long pattern. Then tsurameri and ro, again 2 notes with the same pitch, and rorameri or ri, again 2 notes with the same pitch. And with ri, we're back at he pitch, just 1 octave lower, so we close the loop, okay? So let's call this the full pattern, because there are no more notes in the chiru pattern, okay? So these are all the notes you need to know to play the chiru pattern. Okay. This sounds more complicated than it really is. There is one fundamental thing to learn, and then everything else will be quite easy. I've already mentioned that you should play all the meri notes in the same meri position, but in the full pattern we also have some kari notes, hi and ro, sometimes re or ri. And this means there are now 2 playing positions for this pattern. 1 position for the kari notes, so hi, ro, re, and so on, and 1 for all the other notes, for all the meri notes. Top secret, public disclaimer, before I get any angry fan mail. This is only almost true, okay? But it's a good point to aim for initially. You will probably adjust the meri position ever so slightly, depending on the note, okay? But basically, it's 1 meri position, okay? Just tiny adjustments. So the main thing here to learn is to go between the kari position and the meri position, and you need to do this quickly and without having to adjust, so that you get clean notes, clean starts of the notes. Once you figure out what the meri position is for you on your flute, the rest will become super easy, okay? It takes some experimentation and practice, of course, but of course you need to practice to learn shakuhachi. So kari position, meri. I should make another disclaimer at this point. What I've said does not cover all the nuances of the chiru pattern. It is always a bit different in each piece, so please check with your teacher on what the best way to play it in a particular piece, in a particular context. But let's end with one more general comment or observation. For the kari position in the full pattern, maybe you noticed, I went up to the side to play the kari note. So I basically played meri and kari at the same time, and they cancelled each other out. So if I play hi and I go to kari and meri at the same time, I keep the pitch, but the head position goes into a meri position, and I compensate by opening here, so playing kari. But if you're already down here in this position, changing to a meri position is very easy. Okay, now I just have to quickly open and close here on the side. But this is a bit more involved, maybe. Some of my students have a bit of trouble getting the hang of it. So the topic for another video, or please ask your teacher on how to do this. Doing it this way is very smooth, actually. So if you enjoyed this video, you can find more on special techniques on the shakuhachi here. I made some more videos on this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. I find it a super cool technique. Well, I don't know, cool.